Hollow Knight, one of the most successful indie games of all time, probably. Anyways, it's a great game, and I will try and recreate the first area of the map, 2 types of enemies and a boss fight at the end. But since I have no idea how to create art like Team Cherry, I would just do it in pixel art. So the first thing you need is a player, the knight. Simple enough. I used this image as a reference and created an idle, running and jumping animation. Created a new Unity project and started to work on the player controller. The controls is one of the most important things about the game. Team Cherry really nailed the feel of it and it feels super polished. It's snappy, responsive, which lead to really good platforming. And I actually think I got the jumping and running feel pretty good and somewhat close to the original. The next moves for the knight is the attacks. This also have a great feel to it, with only a few animation frames to make the slash feel very fast. Just one build-up frame and then the slash occurs. I also used this image as a reference, and after a few attempts I got somewhat decent. With the basics done, I feel like adding a small little map and run around and start adding a little life to the environment. Like this grass, for example. Added a small animation when you run into it, and it also breaks when you hit it. Did the same thing for this first door and added some camera shake as well. I also created these butterfly flowers. They do not do anything yet, but they feel pretty juicy. But what fun is breaking doors and grass. It doesn't make a great game. What does make a great game is enemies. So I threw together this first enemy, the Crawlid. Looks pretty good until you look at the running animation. I'm not sure what's wrong with my brain, but my running animations are just not there. Anyways, I added them into the game. I added some particles and camera shake to get that game feel juice. As you saw, they looked like shit, so I upgraded them a bit and it looks a little better. Then I got started on the money system, and I started by creating some art for the geo, and when I pick it up I added a little pickup effect. And to get a little more interesting, I created geo rocks. I added a physics material to the geo so it bounces a little when it lands, and also a simple coin counter. I held off on the directional attacks because that is something I have never done before, but let's get it going with some pogo action so we can do some awesome speedrun moves. And let's just say I got some interesting results at first, but eventually I got something that looked pretty similar to the actual game. I of course added the attack up as well. As you might have seen, I added this UI. It doesn't really work yet, so it's time to do so. First by giving the enemies the ability to hurt the player. And these first enemies don't attack, they just move around, and if you touch them, you take some damage. Simple enough, right? In Hollow Knight, when you take damage, time stops for a short period of time, and then you get shot away. I don't know why this was so difficult for me, but it took some time to get it right. I added a state for the player called Get Hurt State, and when I get hurt, this animation is played. Looks like ass, but that's fine. I just add some particles and now it looks really professional. The same is for these spikes, pretty much the same, just that they don't move. The next enemy in the starting area of the game is the Vengefly. I took a look at this image as a reference, and sometimes I overestimate my ability to create good pixel art. I changed it a bit, but now it looks like a flying shrimp. Oh well, with a simple animation this was fixed. This was simple enough, just created a sphere around the enemy. When the player steps inside it, it starts chasing him. Might have done it a tad overpowered. With the 2 enemies done, it was time to fix the dialogue system. Not the most flexible dialogue system. Probably the worst you can ever have, but it works for this small project. Details on the dialogue I just took from the original and scaled them down in Aseprite and got this pixelated result. In the original game, you're inspecting some kind of egg, but even how much I tried, I couldn't get anything that looked even remotely like it, so I had to settle with this. Just a few things left to do, but before I got started with them, I want to scale up the map a bit so it makes it fit the original size a bit better. Add the platforms and props where they should be. It's not perfect, but it's much better and it kind of feels like the original. My UI doesn't really work. I get hit by the enemies, but I'm not losing any masks, so it's time to fix that. Here we have the mask system working. Also with this blue mask we get from the butterfly flowers. So the natural thing here would be to start on the focus ability. It's the first ability you learn, basically heals the player cost of some soul. And here you can see the animation for it, and to make it look a little bit better I added some particles. It's not the prettiest thing you have seen, but it gets the job done. So to top off this small project, I wanted to add a boss. I never made a boss battle before, so I want a pretty easy boss to start with. And one of the simplest boss to recreate I think is the Grossmother. And I should not give my personal opinion on this, but yikes. The Grossmother have 3 different moves, or 3 states. The first being that the boss just fly around in the room. The second move is the boss slams up and down. And the third and last is a charge attack towards the player. Let's start with the first one. This is simple enough. Just need to make the boss go around in the room, hitting the wall ceiling on the ground. Just change the direction. The slam state is pretty straightforward as well. Adjust the speed and the angle to make the boss to go faster up and down. And the last state is just to find the player's position and then charge at the player. To make the boss feel a little more juicy, I added some animation, particles and screen shake. And oh yeah, I did some unnecessary things as well. I added a small Easter egg. I think Haiku the Robot is a great game, and if you enter here you will get to Haiku, and he has some wisdom for you. I'm not sure if I can put out this game for you guys to play, but if for some reason Team Cherry would see this video and would allow me to make it playable for you guys, I would gladly do it. It would be awesome to hear what some of the Hollow Knight speedrunners like Fireborn thinks of it, if I nail the feel of the controller and stuff like that. And for that reason, I won't show if I have done any other hidden secrets. That is something you have to find out for yourselves. I will also add a main menu and add some sound effects before I could release it, or otherwise it wouldn't be fun to play, I think. That might come in another video, or I will just fix it off camera. And here you got a little bit of gameplay. That's it. Cheers!